Versus November
20th. All right, here we go. Where do we finish it? Did we get to the Currency Act? Did we get to the Currency Act? Check your notes real quick. Did we get to the Currency Act? So we have to set up. We're going to declare independence tomorrow. We're going to start a new nation. We just started. Is that right? All right. One said no colonial settlement west of the Appalachian Mountains. Yeah. 63, a team effort. And the proclamation in 1763, what was the name of the war that the British called a rebellion right here? Yeah. Yeah, Pontiacs. And what was the tax? Did we get to this? So we got Sugar Act?
Yeah.
What was a blanket search warrant where they could search anything they wanted?
What was it?
Hmm? Yeah, what was that called? Yeah.
Writ of assistance.
Yeah, writ of assistance. The big thing about that is, this is what police states do. You don't really search for crime, you harass people. And enemies, you just search all the time. You stop them on the street, you check them. That's a way to control people. And so we got this proclamation. Oh, what treaty ended the French and Indian War? Of? Treaty of Paris of? Yeah, another 1763 one. Okay, good. So we got this. We didn't get this, right?
We did.
Oh, let's do this real quick. Oh, that shows you the pieces of eight, the eight. We can break it in 2 bits. Okay. So here's the Currency Act, and this one is not mentioned, but it's really important because, like the proclamation, it would underline everything. So there's all. Did I mention anything about this at all?
We discussed the Van Gogh.
Yeah, then all kinds of money flowing around, everything from Spanish to the currency of individual colonies. Like here's a New York currency, which I should add was backed up by the way currency's backed up. We promise we'll pay tax, we'll collect taxes and have money to back this up. Well, what they said is they banned it and said all taxes must be paid in specie. Now we talked about specie here, didn't we?
Yeah.
Gold coin where the value is in the coin. Nothing like money today, that's not the way it is, but money today is all currency. Remember, they want to suck up the money because they have to pay back their debts. So they're going to pay back the debt in specie. And that's going to lead to deflation. Immediately, overnight, all this current, whatever might be currency or other forms of money they have from other places, nobody wanted it anymore. Once a government collects their taxes in a certain coin, every business, every merchant, every lawyer, you name it, they must collect in that specie. They have to. So everything else, nobody wanted. The problem is there's very little gold coin. Remember, the colonies have no money. So what happens if there's deflation to the value of money? If there's deflation, does the value go up or value go down? Yeah. Okay, we had up or down, so I just said up and I shook my head. Yes, it goes down. What happens to prices? Prices go up. But I can see you, yeah, because your money can buy more. And once again, that might sound good if you're just simply a consumer, but if that happens to an economy where overnight all of a sudden prices tank, that leads to a depression. Now this is still pre-capitalism. But if people can't make money on what they sell, farmers or merchants or whatever, they can't pay back their debts and the whole system falls apart. That is a destruction of the economy. So as much as we'd like some prices to go down today, you know, on food or whatever it might be, if overall prices drop, that means we are in an economic free fall. And so, debtors, they could not pay back their debt. When there is deflation, debtors can't pay back. It also means that no one's going to loan money anymore. Farmers, speculators are busted. Think about these big plantation owners or speculators or guys like George Washington or both. This crushed them. So, one thing they talked about in the video, and I like Fleming, that one historian, but he says, you know, the taxes were so low. It wasn't the size of the taxes. If you don't have money, any tax is a lot if you don't have money. And that's what happened. They didn't have money, and so you have this underlying bad economy because of deflation, the Currency Act. And so that is where we get to, okay, this is now from the video, we know the Stamp Act. I just put it up here so we just kind of get the order, but remember, this was in the video. What the 12 of the 13 colonies would unify, I told you this during the video, what was that called, where they unified against this law? Stamp Act Congress. Georgia didn't show up, they didn't really care. There's a direct tax Stamp Act Congress, and this is from the video, so this is just review, but they unified. What was what did the Stamp Act Congress decide to do to try to end the Stamp Act? What did they do to British merchants, to their goods? Yeah, what is that called? Don't buy them, what is that called? A boycott. They did the boycott. Who enforced it? What was the name of the group that enforced it? The Sons of Liberty. So this is a review. I just put it up there. There's Sam Adams. They pulled this out again. The original members of the Sons of Liberty, for each colony, they put a white, red, white, red, white, red bar. And that little flag. You can see the beginnings of the American flag. Catch it. Turn it on the side, change the field. That's the beginning. And that's a picture of the fall of the empire. Having a lot of fun hanging the governor of Massachusetts, Thomas Hutchinson, an effigy, so a mock of him. Dog. Even dogs were patriots. Cats organized the whole thing, but dogs, yeah. A couple more. Here's tarring and feathering, destroying governor. I like this one. That one makes me laugh. Look at the face. Lots of tarring and feathering pictures. Destroying Governor Hutchinson's home. So just a few little wooded garage. 66, we know this. Stamp Act was repealed. By the way, this is showing cutting up, chopping up the colonies because of the tax. Basically, Britain destroying. So they would say killing the goose that laid the golden egg. We know the Townshend Act. Remember that one? That was in another attempt to cut the navigation acts, reduce the taxes, and enforce them. So these are just review from the video of this in order, but there's a name we have to give. So they did not cover one person. There was a lawyer in Philadelphia, and he wrote as a farmer called The Letters from a Pennsylvania Farmer. John Dickinson would write this out where he laid out this concept we already talked about, basically no taxation without representation. He was an early patriot, meaning he wanted more autonomy. He didn't want independence. And so soon he would be opposed to independence in 1776. But in 1767, he would be one of the kind of the foundational leaders. This would make him internationally known at the time. So it's just somebody we have to get. And here they are reading the taxes in Philadelphia. So we got John, someone I have to mention. So we know Boston, we know the Quarter Troops, Sons of Liberty, know the boycott. Quarter Troops, I know we said that we saw in the video, but it's more than just that. It's more than just simply having soldiers living in the homes, you're them living in the homes, troops and a fleet, soon 2,000, soon 3,000 troops are in Boston to enforce the tax. There were no other troops anywhere in the colonies. Boston was the key. It was the biggest port. The closest one was Philadelphia. New York, Manhattan, basically, was just on the edge of Britain. Just on the edge. Got to wait a little bit. But, according to the troops and homes, officers stayed in the homes of the elite. You got to remember, about 20% of the population did not have permanent homes. They lived wherever they could live. And I'll tell you about that in just one second. But then you have the privates. are going to go live in individual homes, not the homes of the elite. So these kind of temporary hovels, they're all gone, pretty small, one, maybe 2 rooms, 12 by 12 is like the normal size, so it's small in this room, small little hovels where people lived. And they would send 1 or 2 soldiers and order them to stay in the home with them. So tiny little homes. And the important thing about this, it was a spy within, an enemy within listening, always there. I mean, think about it for a second. How can you even talk amongst your family if there's someone there listening? I mean, we all know this. I mean, all of you talk differently in front of your parents than you do with your friends, right? If there's someone listening, even if you have complete trust in your parents, but you don't say the same stuff. You don't say the same stuff to me, which I would expect. But there's always somebody there. But it's more than that. These are small little homes. They're cold. It's a little cooler than the ice age was going on. Heat was at a premium. It's one room. What's the sleeping arrangements? Especially in winter. One bed. You're all together in one bed. Now, the privacy, our ideas of privacy might be slightly different than theirs, obviously. You have a bed. Okay, wealthier, you could have a mattress made out of straw, or at least straw to lay on. The poorer you are, it's probably just hay. But that's what you would lay on. And you'd clean it out every, depending on how wealthy you are, about once a month. Pull the hay off, get new stuff. So think about a bed. And you might have husband and wife, son, daughter, and a private, all in the same bed. And remember the discipline I told you about, the lobster backs? And they're finally away from that. So they're in charge, and you can imagine how they act. There's something else. Think about it. All in the same bed. Wife, private, daughter, private. You get the point there. Yeah. Okay. Whatever happened, you can imagine how the rumors going to spread. A horrible crime or something else happened. And this is no one. We're talking about the crime. That's what they said happened. They said rape was happening because of this. There's nothing anyone to do. And can you imagine the hatred they would have for these soldiers? And then the soldiers would return the hatred, and there would soon be mobbed. They would attack them. They told privates not go out in public. Remember that massacre they showed? They said it was a massacre. It was more than just living there. Think about it for a second. All it takes is a rumor of that happening, and everyone's going to believe it. One more thing. All of a sudden, you have about 2,000 privates who don't make hardly any money. So when they're off hours, they're going to take jobs that the working people of Boston have. You throw 2,000 workers in a town, 2,000 additional workers. This is still pre-capitalism, but the market fundamentals still exist. What happens to wages if all of a sudden there's 2,000 more workers? It drops the wages for whom? Everybody. Everybody's wages falls because they're taking these jobs, and so the wages fall of these people who, remember I told you, a quarter don't have even a place to live, and now you cut their wages even more, and now you have to care for somebody in your home, and there's no money because of the Currency Act and these other taxes, and there's a boycott going on. And then how do those people live who didn't have a home? Sure, a lot of them lived on the street, but they would round them up and force them to live in these poorhouses. There's no police, so it'd be like militia doing it. These poor people who have no way to make a living, and then they have to pay a rent to live in these places. So you get these ramshackle places, the size of this room. I mean, they would be tinder boxes ready to burn down. They certainly did not last. How many people can we put in this room? Sleep. How many? Well, you can get hundreds. So, tie a rope there, string it tight to here, a rope. Which, by the way, rope making was the big job that soldiers were taking. That was a relatively unskilled job that anyone could do. Hard. Massive job. Rope, rope, rope. You get the image of rope strung across? Then what? So the lines of people would come in and just walk down the road till they get to their shoulder to shoulder, arm over the rope, and that's how they swim. And how do you get out of this trap if you can never make money and they would make you work to pay for staying the night there? Whose fault is it? And think about it. Even if you have that little hovel, one bad month of pay, you might be in your little hovel. Next thing you know, you and your family are sleeping on ropes. That's all it takes, just one bad month, one bad week. Whose fault was it? There's lots of reasons. There are people who live in luxury there, and they're clearly taking advantage of the low wages, but at the same time, you can imagine what the Sons of Liberty are saying. You're one step from poverty. You're one step from living on the streets because of the British. The British did it to you. And so you can imagine how they just got angrier and angrier at the British. Tie that all together, and it's more than just simply having troops in the town, living with you, potentially doing horrible things, and making you insecure. Anytime you might be impoverished. So that's the Boston Massacre. That's why they were there yelling and screaming at him. It wasn't just this, like, hey, let's be disruptive and try to force him to do it. No, there's real anger. So that's the Boston Massacre. Who defended the soldiers? You remember the guy who defended the soldiers? The patriot, and also second president of the United States? John Adams, the first. You guys have to know all the presidents, you know.
Isn't there a test for it?
All the presidents, the parties, and you have to have them alphabetical by height. Yeah, you have to know their heights. Who's the tallest president? It is Lincoln. Who's the shortest president? Madison. He was 5'4" and about 90 pounds. Did someone say Madison? The TIAC. Some days he got over 100. All right, so they did the TIAC. They talked about the Tea Party in the video, and I want to cover that very quickly, but we got to do this, the TIAC. So here's the issue with the TIAC. Okay, they tried the Townshend Acts to cut the Navigation Act. They tried the Sugar Act. They tried the Stamp Act to get around that. Nothing works. They're going to try one more time. They're going to cut the tax. But here's the big deal. Just on tea. Tea was becoming a big drink for Britain. And the reason it's becoming a big drink is because the government of Britain was trying to make India work. And they're getting the tea from India. The East India Company ran the British possession in India. They were a joint stock company. It wasn't a royal colony until 1850. And the Tea Act gave a monopoly to the British East India Company. And the reason why was simple. After the 7 Years' War, the company was going broke. Stockholders were not making money. And they decided, we got to make this company work. Members of Parliament, many members, were also stockholders in the company. So they were passing a law to enrich themselves. This is an incredible conflict of interest. So it's not just this to collect tax, it's I'm invested in a company and I want them to make money so I have more money and my life is easier. What a conflict of interest. Could this ever happen now? Never. But don't forget the fornication laws was a massive conflict of interest. You know, we're going to stop the filthy sin of fornication, but let's be honest, it was for them. This would never happen today. So, I just lied to you. I lied to you through my teeth. Can you believe it? Will you ever trust me again? This happens all the time. All the time today. The United States is really bad about it. Because we have no laws about conflict of interest, basically. It's kind of shocking. Most other countries do. The United States does not, because I guess there's too much money in it. But it's going broke. So the tax is tiny, but the company will collect it. And some merchants in the colonies, and not all, They have to go through a process and pay. They can get a license to sell East India tea. If you don't have a license, you can't sell the tea. And so it was to make a monopoly, the company will make money, and they'll collect the tax. Now, the tax was really low, but nobody was paying it. Ironically, normally, there's a monopoly for what people want. What happens to the price? If it's for something, if someone has a monopoly for what people want, and by the 1770s, they needed tea. What would the company normally do with the price? There's a monopoly on, yeah, raise it, right? In the short run, this actually cut the cost. It cut the price. And they knew it would cut the price. The reason was simple. Smugglers charge a premium. Smugglers charge a premium because they might get arrested. And so at first, it dropped the price lower than what the smugglers had. It undercut people like John Hancock. It undercut them. Infuriated them. That's why people like John Hancock would become leading patriots. It undercut their price. Now, of course, the East India Company down the road would have kept boosting it to make it higher. And so that's why, for example, in 1920, when the United States, in essence, banned alcohol, called Prohibition, nobody was happier than the gangsters. Organized crime could charge a massive premium, and people accepted it because they might get arrested. Nobody was more upset when they repealed that amendment in 1933 than organized crime. Nobody was more upset than basically organized crime when they legalized marijuana in various states, including Montana, because it undercuts it. You pay for a premium. And you could argue whatever about addictive drugs. The point is that is the economics there. So, I like the old symbol. I always like that. That'd be the one from the 19th century, not as cool. This, immediately, they ratcheted up. The Sons of Liberty started another boycott, and they're furious. And once you go from tarring and feathering back for the Stamp Act, that's where you start now. You started at that level. And here's the biggie. It wasn't the tax at all. It's the monopoly. That's the issue. Who's going to control your lives? Who will control it? And it was, if you might have heard of, I jumped the gun. The tax was secondary. You might have heard of the slippery slope argument. That once you start, it gets worse and worse. And here you can imagine what the Patriots were saying. If they can put a monopoly on tea, and all of you want tea, what can they put a monopoly on next? Tobacco, shipping, rum, we can go on. And everything you have will soon be owned by the crown. Everything you own. Remember, they've already tried. Don't forget the Sugar Act, the Townshend Acts, the Stamp Acts. They're coming for you. They'll send troops to live with you, and pretty soon you have nothing to defend yourself. You will become nothing more than slaves. And that was it. They said, our liberty's at stake. Are we going to be free men, or are we going to be slaves? And then you get to one thing I will repeat, and it has to be emphasized. They all knew slavery was horrible. They knew it. The reason I'm saying that is one of the justifications after it, especially a justification for the South starting the Civil War, is they'll say, oh, everyone had slavery. No one knew it was bad, so why get, it wasn't about slavery. No, they all knew. Of course they do. They're smart. So here's another one of these. Brethren and fellow citizens, you may depend that those, odious, see, they can use S's. Miscreants, you know, the F, looks like an F. Sometimes you use S, sometimes I don't get it. Printing presses. And so that leads to the Boston Tea Party. And that's why this is such a big deal. Because it would ratchet up so much, and you can imagine what they're thinking back in London. How can they complain? We cut the tax and the price of tea is actually cheaper. It was not the tax, it was the monopoly. So the Boston Tea Party, this was the straw that broke the camel's back. Once this happened, it's going to be very hard to go back. So there's two ships, the Eleanor and the Beaver, sitting out there in the harbor. They don't want to unload because there are unruly groups of Sons of Liberty threatening them. And I should add, tea back then imagine bricks as hard as this with tea. Big bricks about this thick, like a rectangle. That thick, anywhere from about 20 by 12. So it would take over a year to get the tea back from India. So the way they did tea back then is they would literally pound it with a hammer to get a powder and then put it in little, almost like a, it was very close to how they would percolate coffee. See a little thing, run hot water through it. That's how they did it. Tea bags did not exist yet. So these two ships. And there was a meeting at North Hall. North Hall this is North Hall today. It's really cool. If you get a chance, go to Boston, go to North Hall. Then it was about 100 yards from the water. They filled in much of the harbor to make the town bigger, so now it's about maybe half a mile from the water. But they had a meeting. And you can imagine people, it's packed, and they're talking about these two ships out there. And are we going to let them control our lives? And they had speaker after speaker talking about our liberties at stake. And the Parliament is coming to take over your life. And then at a set moment, just as everyone's all riled up, the doors burst open, and a bunch of Sons of Liberty came rushing in, dressed as what? Mohawks. What? Why Mohawks? Why they come dressed up?
Mohawks as in pointy hair or Mohawks as in non?
Well, that's what people today, pointy hair? You mean haircut right here? Remember, they didn't wear their hair like that back then. So they didn't know about this. Why?
Which one?
Everybody knew who they were. Everyone knew they were the Sons of Liberty. Here's the reason why they did it. They'd never seen people so free as American Indians. Remember I told you kind of the Enlightenment and the idea of rights came from the European vision of American Indians? So there's a dichotomy, a contradiction in the way they looked at American Indians. There was a combination of these colonists looked at them and thought, they're wasting our land, we want our land. And I've never seen people more free. I've never seen people who could do whatever they wanted and didn't have to worry about these class structures and hierarchies. And they admired that and at the same time wanted their land. That's a contradiction. They dress as Mohawks, who, by the way, lived right about here, kind of far away from Boston, because they represented liberty. Liberty. So, you might have seen the Great Seal of the United States of America, and it's the bald eagle, and one of its talons are arrows for American Indians. That's why. By the 1830s, that would go away. When it became very clear that the United States was going to take all the land, they wanted to make sure that they began to degrade American Indians so they didn't deserve the land. Racist. But that's coming down the road. So they dumped these cases in the water. Actually, what happened was this. Let's get them. And they all come charging to the pier, and they had big rowboats called whale boats all ready for it. And they jumped in. Most of the people just stood at the pier. It was night, waving torches and screaming obscenities. But the Sons of Liberty got these rowboats. It's all prepared. And they rowed out to the Eleanor. And the crew on the Eleanor were like, oh my God. They're just stuck on the ship. You can't just sail away. This is 1773. The sails are down. So they couldn't do anything. They actually tried to fight them off so they wouldn't board the ship. But the Sons of Liberty overwhelmed them, roughed up the crew members. Most of them they threw overboard. They dumped the tea overboard and burnt the ship down to the waterway. The people on the Beaver are watching this. They can't go anywhere. And they're going, oh no. And they see them getting thrown overboard. People couldn't swim back then. No one knew how to swim. Swimming, as we know, is an invention of the 19th century. So that happened. So what happened on the Beaver? They jumped on the whale boats. They rowed to the Beaver. And what did the crew of the Beaver do? Here, let me help you up. We keep the tea right over here. Can I help you open it? So they weren't roughed up. They joined in. They basically joined in out of necessity. The Crown was furious. And you can imagine the propaganda value of this. Fighting back against their tyranny, against their monopoly. So there's all these great pictures of it. Go to Boston. Boston's cool. I know it's easy for me to say go to Boston when you actually have to go there, but it's really cool if you get a chance. So there's the destruction of the tea. You can see the Mohawk Indians. This is actually 1840s. This is something called a lithograph. They started making these really cheap little pictures. Here's another one, really famous one. You see the Mohawk, right? Mohawks, the tea on the shore. Has anyone ever heard of Snapple? So Snapple was this New York company, made tea. And has anyone ever had a Snapple? Too sweet, but that was the old label for Snapple. You see it? You see the picture? Makes sense? Tea party, tea. See the picture? So, 1990s. A conspiracy began to be struck. People looked at this picture and they didn't see the tea parties, they didn't know. And they started saying this is something else. Something more hideous. People began to say, spread all throughout the United States in the 1990s. Those are slave ships. And they're carrying slaves. Now, you look at just even a cursory look, it's ridiculous. But yeah, and we have proof that not only are they pro-slavery, but Snapple is a white supremacist company because of this K with a circle on it. And that, of course, means it Ku Klux Klan. And sales of Snapple dropped like a rock. And the company went out of business. The name was scooped up by Quaker, which is owned by PepsiCo. And Snapple disappeared. Was this true? Was this a slave ship? How could people believe something so ridiculous? Seriously, how could they? Yeah, it fit in what they wanted to believe. And wait. What does K stand for? Kosher. It's kosher. So it's prepared properly, so practicing Jews can use it. By the way, could this kind of thing happen today? Dogs and cats, people, that's all I'm going to say. Dogs and cats. Oh, yes, it can pass. See you. So, you want to give a quiz? Grade a quiz? Remind me, do it. Goodbye, everybody.
Can I come in doing things?
Yeah, no. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I may be. Yeah, I'll just give you real quick on the hallway. Okay. Goodbye, everybody. Bands? No. How dare you? Can somebody get one of the lights, please? Thanks. Yeah, just go and find it.
Okay.
Not a big deal.
Thank you.
I literally looked at the random page and I found it.
You're kidding me. That's talent. That was one of the.
Oh, yeah.
What? Oh,
There were so many panels.
It was a terrible. Did you find it? Did you?
Yeah, I think I just got psyched out, but.
You're gonna be good. It was a good game.
It almost got all the games at this point.
I know. Yeah.
That's crazy. Before you start your lecture.
Okay, so I talked to Carter and he asked me that's not signed.
What the heck, Carter?
He said when he does, he'll email you to let you know so you can cross it out.
That's pretty fun. Yes. I'll explain it. Life has, yeah, you were.
Do you want me to come in after school? Just, or after the period? Because that's when I get out. Okay, yeah, it's just after, I get out after the fifth, so.
So I have AP or things like that. I push you around the hallway.
Okay, so yeah.
That'll work out for the best. Yeah, I'll click them all together. Rip out the maps very carefully, put your names on it.
Thank you.
Name, rank, and serial number. Name, rank, and serial number. Don't give up anything.
I did one of this.
Was it?
You just do it.
Okay.
in my defense, it's really good. We were so yeah.
Oh, wait, that's what the Rangers play. I figured it out. And all the corporations. I was like, oh, well, yeah. So the Rams had closed with Ruby Soul. Yeah, they did. Everyone just went nuts.
They opened with Maxwell Murder, so
I don't really know. I don't really know Rams. I've heard a couple songs. I remember they were popular in the '90s. And then when we found out we were going, I started listening. And I go, oh yeah, I like this. I didn't know that. And Green Day Imagine was fantastic.
yes, I got a pick from Mike Dirt, so I'm happy about that.
You got what?
I got Mike Dirt's pick, so I'm happy about that.
Did you really?
Yeah, I had really good seats. 'Cause I was in the pit, but I was like 2 or 3 people away from the barricade.
How soon did you get there? Did you have to get there about?
I did a VIP tour, so I had a backstage
VIP. Your
tour.
mom told me you got the VIP. We talked about that, but we decided not to. Good. I'm glad you had fun. And I know you'll make it as soon as possible. You got some reading, bunch of notes to make up. Everyone, take out the map. Make sure your name is on. If there are any questions, I'll be glad to point randomly in the general direction of the map. There's Trent right there. And oh, wait, let me see. Any questions? I'll be glad to point. Oh, one thing, and you can see from this map, I know a lot of things are very tied together. Remember, everything has to be within walking distance. So, rip it out very carefully, put your name on them, put your period, put your rank and serial number. So when you're taken prisoner.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I love her.
I like it. No, very good. Just on the keys here, I can see it. All right.
Yeah, it's just green.
Rip it off very carefully, turn it up.
I wish it was green.
Hand them up, hand them up, hand them up. Missing a few in this row.
Yeah. I'm good.
Who's that? Is that Bucky?
And then my flights.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't get back until yesterday. I was supposed to be back on
You were gone yesterday, so you were gone Friday. Yeah, give it to me. Bye. Just put down absent. Next. All right. Does everybody have the review list for the test? Does everyone have the review list for the test? If you do not have the review list of the test, raise your hand. Pass these back. Pass these back. All right. No, you don't need that right now. I'm just checking. She did a test today. I'm ready. Okay, here's the deal. I thought we'd be able to have a test. What happened? Oh, did it just pop out at the attach it? I thought we'd have the test on Friday. I thought we'd make it, but we're not going to. So the test, there's no way we can do a test on Monday. That's a short period. So the test we're going to do. Where are you getting that from? Sounds good. Have you noticed? If I get offside, it tastes nothing like what? That's all natural. Yeah. All right, let's go take your notes out. Because we got right. Where do we finish in there? Oh.
Daniel Boone, like the Daniel Boone.
Oh, Daniel Boone. What do you call somebody who just goes in, sits in a piece of land?
Squatter.
Squatter. I don't know why I said it.